Hey, it's Jacqueline here with Pennington's Perspective, where I answer your most burning real estate questions and share a couple fun facts along the way. So today's question's been a popular one at the listing table, and that's what's the real deal when it comes to sold over asking? I'd say there's a pretty common conception out there that every house in Northumberland is selling for $100,000 and $200,000 over its asking price, which is 100% not the case. And for that, we look back at what exactly happened in terms of the facts and stats from 2021. The average house in Northumberland actually sold for 102% of its asking price, which works out to be roughly around $14,000 when you factor in the average house here will sell for around $707,000. The interesting thing about that is that it also does take into account both ends of the spectrum. So it's very common, for example, for lower priced homes, say, for example, a house listed at $300,000 to hold offers and then sell well above that at, for example, $600,000. On the flip side of it, when we're looking at the higher end in terms of our luxury market, it's actually pretty rare for those houses to sell over their asking price at all. So they may commonly be listed at 1.4 million and they will actually sell under that price. So it really does beg the question, if most houses are not selling for over $100,000 of their asking price, why do we think they are? And I think for that, it really comes down to advertising. And really, when we look at it and we think about it as a real estate agent, it's pretty common that agents are going to say sold $100,000, $200,000 over asking price. But if you sold a house under asking, you don't typically post that on social media or scream it to the world. You want to really focus on showcasing the big successes you had. Now, there's also a slight problem with that, is that advertising a sale price of a property is actually a direct violation of the Real Estate Business and Brokers Act. And specifically, I've got some notes on that today because I can't remember the entire act word for word. A registrant shall not include anything in an advertisement that could reasonably be used to determine any contents of the agreement that deals with the conveyance of interest in real estate, including any provision of the agreement related to price, unless the parties to the agreement have consented in writing. So essentially what that means, unless both the buyer and the seller have consented in writing to that advertisement, it cannot be done. Period. So of course, there's always a possibility when you're seeing agents advertise sold 100, 200 over asking that they've received consent from both the buyer and seller. Always possible. That being said, I've been in real estate now for just a little under 15 years, and I facilitate a number of transactions, and I've actually never seen a seller and buyer consent to that ever. Not in one single agreement. So I think it's safe to assume it's pretty rare that a buyer is going to consent to their property that they've just purchased being advertised, sold over, $100,000 of asking. So the other possibility is perhaps the agent just doesn't know that this is a rule. This rule has actually been in effect since 2002, so for nearly 20 years. I think it's safe to assume that a realtor should know this rule exists, as we are required to have a full understanding of the Real Estate Business Brokers Act that we're governed by. And then, of course, the third possibility, maybe they know and they just kind of don't care. I think, unfortunately, this is actually what happens most of the time, especially when you see an agent advertising sold 110%, etc. It seems to be that there's a conception out there that perhaps if you don't say the actual price, but the percentage price, it's kind of a gray area and you can get away with it. Unfortunately, the act is very clear. Anything related to the price or that may be reasonably able to be used to determine the price cannot be done. So what's my opinion on that? Well, I don't think you'd be surprised to know that if you're entrusting someone to sell your home and your largest investment, and part of the key things that you're focused on and you're seeing in their advertising is a direct violation of the Real Estate Business Brokers Act in which they're governed by, might be a slight red flag on using them. But hey, that's up to you to decide. Till next time, take care and feel free to send us a DM anytime to answer your real estate questions.